Let's look at short answer prompts for the reading section. So for this prompt type, we see some very typical features for your IELTS reading questions, right? We have our word limit, and numbers can be involved as well. Sometimes you'll use a number for your answer. So we have to look for those, of course, very carefully when we get these question types. Okay, but your job for this question type is going to be to answer these questions. Okay, you're going to have some full questions to look at. So in number 1 here, what kind of root can grow away from the plant it feeds and produce a new above ground shoot? Okay, a direct question that you need to answer by getting information from the text. All right, we'll take a close look at these questions in a moment. Let's talk more about some keys to success for this question type. All right, so as always, as we already discussed, pay attention to that word limit and number limit. It's really important for all these questions so you don't miss easy points by answering incorrectly or using the incorrect number of words. Okay, we've seen that in many other prompt types. All right, the second point. You're going to find answers in order in the text for this question type. Okay, so we've seen that in a few other reading prompt types, right? Not all though, okay? As opposed to the listening paper, on the reading paper, some of your question types do not have prompts that come in order. But for short answer questions, for these questions we see for this prompt type, they will come in order. A great clue for you as you're scanning. If you think you found the answer to one prompt, you know that the answers for the prompts that come before it are going to come before in the passage as well, and after, and so on. Okay, so a great thing to keep in mind for this prompt type. Now, some more things to think about with these short answer questions. So the answers are going to be words taken directly from the text. That's how you answer these questions. There's no opinion or any sort of consideration of what you think about the question involved. You're supposed to simply answer by finding words that answer that question in the text. Okay? So, in other words, you're going to get question prompts that paraphrase some idea in the passage, and your job will be to find the correct words that respond to that question based on that paraphrased language. Okay, so you need to be careful with this question type. Sometimes in your question prompt, they will intentionally use some words to distract you, okay? So maybe they will take some word or a phrase of some kind that comes from somewhere directly in the text, okay? And that is intended to sort of pull your attention away. Not always, but this is a common thing you might find on the IELTS. Most of the key language in your prompt will be paraphrased from the text, okay? So don't be fooled to just stop searching when you found a word or two that match exactly the words that are in your prompt. That's not a place to stop. You need to make sure the idea that you're looking for matches the idea in the question, and that you can find the correct word to answer that question for this prompt type, okay? As with all IELTS reading prompt types, you do need to look for those key words in the prompt, okay? But it's for this question type, it's especially important because you need to make sure the answer you're providing, the words that you find in the text, are the correct answer, the correct type of word that you should be searching for in the text. So some questions are going to ask you to find a date or the weight of something or the height of something. They may ask you to find an action of some kind. Okay, so you have to find the correct kind of word based on the question that has been asked. We'll look at an example of this in just a moment. For now, keep that in mind, that these keywords tell you the exact type of word you should be looking for in the passage, okay? Now, this question type looks a little similar, but it's actually different from sentence completion questions, right? Sentence completion questions, you remember, that's a prompt type where you have to complete a sentence in a grammatical way, okay? These short answer prompts do not need to be answered with a grammatical phrase, okay? In other words, if it's a noun, you can leave out things like the articles, okay, the or a, and, things like that, okay? You just simply need to provide the words that provide a sufficient answer to the question. So with this word limit that you have, it's almost going to be impossible to create a full sentence in response, okay? You don't need to worry about creating these full sentences or phrases. You need to worry that you have answered with a word or a group of words that fully answers the question you're being asked. Okay, again, we will see an example of that. I'll provide an example when we do an example question to show you exactly what we mean by that, where you can omit some of the words. You just need to supply the most important or the most direct answer to the question. All right, now something to keep in mind, it may help you. Most of the answers to these short answer prompts tend to be nouns or noun phrases. Not always, okay? There are certainly exceptions, and you'll likely encounter one or two prompts that are not, but usually you're asked to find nouns. These tend to be detail-oriented questions where you're asked to find some key details in the text and pull those out for your answers. So they tend to be nouns in most cases. All right, now let's answer our sample questions here, like we do in our other question prompt videos. Let's, if you'd like to, go ahead and try to answer these questions on your own. Hopefully, we're going to answer using the article you see down below. We've used it for a few other question types as well, so maybe you're familiar with it. If not, go ahead and scan that. Don't read it slowly and carefully. Let's practice what we do for the exam. Go through and scan that text, and then you're going to go back and try to answer these two questions. And after you do that, we will discuss them a little bit. Okay, so go ahead and pause your video now. All right, let's take a look at some answers for these two. Let's start with number 1. What kind of root can grow away from the plant it feeds and produce a new above ground shoot? Okay, a nice long sentence here. Now, we talked in the strategy section at the beginning, the keys for success on this question type. One of them is to make sure you're finding exactly what kind of word you're supposed to look for in the text. Well, it's pretty clear. Even though we've got this nice long sentence here, the goal for this question is to indicate a kind of root. Now, it's a kind of root that can do all of these things we find in the second half of the sentence, but our answer must be a kind of root. Okay, a noun. So we need to look for that. Where is a discussion of a kind of root in the passage? And when we find that, does that kind of root match the characteristics found in the prompt? Well, we're supposed to look for a root, okay, that grows away from the plant it feeds, okay? So somehow it starts to, even though it's connected to that plant, it starts to grow in a different direction. It starts to extend out from that plant, away from it, perhaps quite a distance. We don't know from the stem here. But once it's away, then it produces a new above ground shoot. Now, a shoot may be a vocab word you're not familiar with. A shoot is a synonym of the word branch or stem. And the word stem was used in the passage itself. So that would be a key paraphrase here, possibly. Now, this root produces a new stem that comes out of the ground and comes above and appears to be a separate plant, even though it's connected at the root to the original plant, the one that the root was first connected to and grew out from. All right, there we go. That's the idea we need to find, and our answer must again be this root. Okay, so hopefully you found that in paragraph C. Let's look at paragraph C down below and look at how it paraphrases this idea and provides us the correct answer, which is rhizome. So it says, Within the soil, a root will extend horizontally. Okay, extend horizontally away. There's our idea of growing away from the parent plant, or a paraphrase there again, the plant it feeds, right? So this root grows away from that plant, grows out horizontally from it, and it sends up a new stem that breaks through to open air a distance away and grows separately. Okay, to break through to open air, that's the same idea as a shoot that is above ground, right? So the stem that breaks through to open air and the shoot that's above ground are paraphrased ideas there. So far we're looking good with this paraphrase, but we're still not there because we need to find the name of this root, and that is going to be our answer to the question. So it continues. A root capable of doing this is called a rhizome. There's our definition, and that's what answers our question for this short answer question type. Okay, so we found when we knew beforehand when we were doing our scanning that we needed to find a kind of root, and this is where we found it in rhizome. Now, the word rhizome will be an acceptable answer here. This is what we're talking about. You don't have to complete some sentence or make a complete phrase. We need the name of the root, and you could answer rhizome, or if you put the article there, a rhizome, it would be correct as well. Okay, but rhizome is our key answer. It's a sufficient answer for number one. All you need to get a correct answer for this prompt. All right, let's look at number two. What is the average age of Pando's ramets? Okay, so we've got rhizomes and ramets described in this passage. Now, we just saw a paragraph, you probably read over it, that described the difference between a rhizome and a ramet, right? So that information was back there in that same paragraph where we got the answer for number one. Ramet is, in the case of this essay, used as a synonym of the word stem or branch, or as we just saw, the word shoot in question number one. Okay, so a ramet is the part that comes off of the root and comes above ground. Okay, it extends out and it appears to be a brand new plant, even though it's connected to all those other to the rest of the organism through the root system. Okay, that's what we are discussing in this clonal colonies passage. So that information is provided for you early, but then later in the whole essay, you're supposed to apply it in this question are surrounding this Pando organism, this organism thought to be possibly one of the biggest organisms in the world, right? Or the biggest possibly, right? Okay, so the question is, what is the average age? So our answer must be the average age of something. Okay, so in this case, we are pretty certain, right? We're going to provide a number as our answer. That's going to be what answers this prompt correctly. So that's what we're going to search for related to Pando. Now, we need to know what a ramet is. And if we know what a ramet is, then, and we learned that hopefully earlier in the essay, then we go to this paragraph on Pando and we find this sentence there. The average age of Pando's stems, okay, our paraphrase of ramet there, is 130 years. To get a correct answer here, your best bet is to write 130 years, since you can write two words, but 130 would also work as well, because we're just looking for that age of the average age of Pando's ramets. Okay, so again, a key here is that we recognize what a ramet is and that it relates to this feature on Pando, where it discusses very directly here that these stems are on average 130 years old. Then it goes on to say that its root system is much, much older than that, within a huge range of many years, but quite a bit older than 130 years. Okay, so you had to sort out all of that information. If you recognized that ramet and stem is a paraphrase, you knew right where to look for this answer for number two. Okay, so you see how you just need to find that information that's being directly asked of you. Usually you're asked to look for some type of noun, some detail that is a noun. It could be, again, something different, but that's generally what you should expect for these short answer questions. So let's review. All right, so for short answer questions in the reading paper, they will come in order, which is a great help for you as you're scanning for answers and trying to search for them. The answers will be words taken directly from the text, okay? It's the question prompt that's going to be paraphrased for you, and you need to answer that question directly with words from the text by searching for the same idea mentioned in the passage and those words that answer the question directly. You need to make sure you read the question